Narrative Elements, Chapter 2, Theme. Theme is one of those disputed concepts. Basically, this word is used in two different ways by various people, some of whom will be quite happy to punish you and look down on you and think you're uneducated if you use the word in a way they don't approve of. So, the two ways aren't perfectly compatible, but they are related, and the thing that relates them is the idea of aboutness. The concept of theme relates to what a piece of literature is about. But the thing is, there are different levels of aboutness, right? In one sense, Moby Dick is about whaling. There are whole chapters on the technical details of the whaling industry and the biological classification of whales and things like that. But in another sense, the novel is about more abstract moral questions like, how can we feel confident that we're pursuing the right course of action, doing the moral thing? And at what point does it become too much that you've pursued what you thought was the right thing to do and now you should not stick to your guns any longer? Okay, you need to know both senses in which people use this word theme in order to handle yourself in the world of discussing literature. And luckily, you can always absolutely tell from context which sense a person has in mind. I will call these two senses arbitrarily, because I have to call them something, theme with a little t and theme with a capital T. Rough synonyms for theme with a little t are preoccupations or topics, or maybe motif. Just more or less important things that recur in a work, like the whaling industry or the technology of whaling does in Moby Dick. If somebody asks you about theme with a little t, except they probably wouldn't do that, because this is the one that snooty people look down on. But if they did, they would probably put it in the plural, because it would be pretty lame if a writer had only one thing that they wrote about, if their writing was only about one single thing and nothing else. So Moby Dick is not only about whaling, it's also about obsession, depression, friendship, interpretation, moral certainty, etc. So if somebody asked you about themes with a small t, except they probably wouldn't, an acceptable answer would be a list of nouns and noun phrases. Okay? So in the other sense of the word theme, the one I'm calling theme with a capital T, a rough synonym would be thesis, or moral, or message, the main takeaway that the author wanted you to get from the story. So you're going to forget, some years after you've read Moby Dick, you're going to forget what you learned about how to boil down whale blubber, but hopefully you would remember how Captain Ahab got gradually more and more fanatical and how badly that turned out. Typically, works of literature don't come with their thesis statement attached to them. With the exception of the genre of fables, right? Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Honesty is the best policy. These fables are stories designed mainly for the purpose of being a delivery device for the moral. But most other genres of literature not only do not have a moral attached to them explicitly, it's considered kind of stupid if there's one simple moral that it's real easy to see. So for that reason, in fine literature, theme is always up for grabs, always a matter of interpretation. And since interpretation and argument is what we live for in English departments, theme is a rich area for literary discussion. And you might get asked about theme in this sense. Somebody might actually say to you, what is the theme of this short story or this novel? And you just translate that in your head into what is the stealth thesis of this story. And the correct answer to a question of that kind would be in a full sentence that makes an assertion about human nature or morals or something like that. And then you're going to be fine. But if you make the mistake of answering with just a noun phrase or just a list of noun phrases, you are getting a C on that assignment at best. Okay? So here's an example. What is the theme theme with a capital T of the Cinderella story? Okay, I'm going to give you an answer. This is more or less off the top of my head. The theme of Cinderella. Women who have unusually small body parts are more desirable than regular women. Okay? Now, you might dispute me that that is really the theme, and if we were discussing Cinderella in class, I'm sure that there would be some rival themes that people would propose in contrast to mine as the most important takeaway from Cinderella. Okay? Here's another one. Theme of Cinderella. Ultimately, good always triumphs over evil because there are supernatural forces, like the fairy godmother, that are supervising to make it turn out that way. All right? Theme candidate number 3. The way to deserve true love, at least for a woman, is not to resist when you're treated badly in the home. Okay? 3 candidate themes for Cinderella. I'm not claiming that any one of those statements is the ultimate truth about Cinderella, but they're at least the right type of answer, okay? The wrong type of answer would be just to say, the theme of Cinderella is true love, or the theme of Cinderella is good versus evil. You've got to make some assertion about love before it's theme with a capital T. Or rather, what you assert is that the story is making this assertion. That's what theme is. Now, there are a lot of people that will tell you that only theme with a capital T is a legitimate use of the word. Do you remember Doug Hunt, who wrote the Riverside Guide to Writing? In the chapter where he lays out the literary six-pack, except remember, it's not called that, he defines theme very carefully with examples and explains how wrong you would be if you thought true love or good versus evil counted as a theme. Except that, in another chapter, I caught him using the word theme in the other way himself. He was talking about some author who kept coming back to the theme of death over and over. I forget the details now, I'm sorry. If you want to track this down, you can buy a used copy of the book. But the point is, Doug Hunt made that ironclad rule for himself and students to follow, and then he forgot the rule himself. It's just too convenient for us to be able to have that small t theme in our toolbox also. So the moral of this story is, don't be too rigid how you try to control other people's use of words. And incidentally, I want to say for the record that I like and respect Doug Hunt. He used to be my teacher. I think he's a smart and honest person, despite one small slip-up. So, I, as your teacher, am not going to make any rules for how you use the word theme. You can please yourself. Just know that there are people out there that will judge you if you talk about theme with a small t. You know what's always safe, though? The adjective, thematic. When we're talking in class about a story or a narrative essay, I might or might not get into discussing theme. It's not always all that relevant. It's not always the most interesting angle to approach a piece from. And like plot, it's got certain pitfalls for inexperienced writers and readers. But I can't get through a single day without using the word thematic, and I want to train you to have the same habit. When you're making connections inside a literary piece, whether you're writing it or just reading it, these connections are thematic links from between one part and another part. Let me give you an example on this too. Let's say, back to Cinderella, let's say I find there to be a connection between Cinderella's glass slipper and her obedience to her wicked stepmother. Because in both cases, isn't there the idea that Cinderella's kind of shrunken up? She has, on the one hand, freakishly little feet. And on the other hand, she's leading a freakishly restricted life. Isn't it the case that her stepmother belittles her? Okay, don't laugh. I mean, I'm serious. I think that kind of behind the scenes, the story really is suggesting that good behavior for young women means taking up as little space and being as unobtrusive or unassertive as possible. Okay? The dainty feet and the submissive behavior are, I claim, thematically related. There's something deep in the aboutness of the Cinderella story, in the effect that that story is trying to have on you, where the glass slipper and the obedience are connected. You can disagree with me about Cinderella if you want to, but please do start using the word thematic today and keep on using it the rest of your life. Now, a word of warning for literature students. We have discussed the plot trap, where plot summary is likely to earn you a C grade because it just doesn't go deep enough. Well, there's also a theme trap that some students fall into if they've been taught about theme, and they know that they're not supposed to write about plot. So some people think that the ultimate goal of discussing literature must be to identify the theme, because, after all, what could be deeper or more important than the most significant thing the author wanted to impart to the reader, the most significant message they were trying to send you home with? It's debatable whether every single piece of literature even has a theme in the sense of stealth thesis. And even if it does, that's not automatically something that you can write an interesting paper about. Oftentimes, students, because they think it's what they're supposed to do, they will take a complex story and reduce it into a one-sentence moral. And it's just like the stepsister's feet, you know, it won't all fit in there. You need to get a bigger slipper. Or else, don't try to contain the entire artwork, okay? It's not your job to provide an overview or a summary, or even to pick out the one most important piece of an artwork. You are perfectly free to analyze just a small part of it. For example, one character or one aspect of the setting or just the point of view. Theme is, you're certainly free to write about theme, but it's not the only thing that's available for you for saying something interesting in an analytic paper. And I recommend that you look hard at characters, setting, and point of view. Now, for creative writers, also concentrating too hard on theme can be detrimental to your work. I will provide for you, either in class or online, at least one very clear negative example of theme not paying off properly. I'm not saying you shouldn't write with a theme in mind, theme with a capital T. I'm just saying if that's what you're doing, at least think hard about what else can you bring to the table along with that, and make at least an effort to be a little bit subtle about your agenda. People often don't care for being whammed over the head or preached to.